Welcome back to the Music Theory Podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and let us know in the comments what you'd like us to analyze next.
Welcome back, everyone, or something like that.
We have such a great intro, so welcome back. Actually, I have to say that beforehand we will actually do 3 videos, but 3 very, very short ones.
Okay.
And the first one, which we are doing now, is gonna be like the basis for all 3 videos. So if you want to watch the second one, should be advisable to also watch the first one, but you can also watch the third one without the second and stuff. And now, as always, I'm gonna play you some music.
Okay.
And as always, you will tell me what we actually will talk about.
All right.
For the audience, I have the score here.
All right.
So we will compare these 2 pieces, and the reason why we do that is what I want you to find out, actually.
Okay.
And the Vertigo theme.
Okay, so I'm supposed to find out what we're going to talk about just seeing these 2 examples.
Yeah, maybe it's a stretch.
It's probably, but I can try to find something. At least I can try to describe what I'm seeing. I would say maybe in both cases there is something about suspension going on, but perhaps in the Wolf example it's a little bit more implicit, a little bit less in your face, but there is still some sort of suspension going on. So I would almost want to divide the example in 2 chords. One chord that is in and of itself a suspension, which is the first one, the D minor with an added B. Even though there is no B, there is no D. Sorry, there is no D, but yes, somehow I heard D minor with an added 6th.
Yeah.
Which is a chord with a suspension, and then and then actually the DF might confirm it and might also play the role of a suspension over the E7 chord that is implied. Yes, E7 9. Yeah, and well, in the Vertigo theme, we have a great example of the love of Hollywood music for 11th suspensions, and particularly Lydian ones, and yes, which is it's a very orgasmic suspension, a very intense one, and Hollywood has really played a lot with this. So that's what I see. I mean, there is more to be said. There is, of course, in the Vertigo theme, this opposition between 2 keys apparently, but that's not. I can't really see that in the Wolf, so that's why I didn't mention it at first.
True. So you were right to suppose or to speak about, let's say, very complicated sounds with suspensions or maybe dissonant chord extensions. And now you made 2 videos with the title Tonal Ambiguity, right?
Yes.
And so I'm a copycat a little bit. I would like to call that video Chordal Ambiguity. The complete title of the video will be Chordal Ambiguity and Irreducibly Complex Sounds in Vertigo. Okay. Vertigo, of course, being the very famous Hitchcock film, I think maybe one of the best rated films by film critics of all time. It's and the film music is from Bernard Herrmann, or Herrmann actually, because he is born in New York, so I guess Herrmann.
Yeah.
Probably German in descent, so because just Herrmann is a very German name.
Yeah.
And the scene d'amour is quite in the end of the film. I watched that 2 days ago in order to prepare myself. It's really a very good film. It's really enjoyable. And you will, throughout the film, you will always hear a little bit of that. Yeah, it's really sort of a leitmotif. And now my hypothesis actually is that this second chord is an irreducibly complex sound. Now, what do I mean by that? The sound, or this chord, is not a deductible chord. You can't make one traditional chord of it. It is instead a complex fragment with multiple implications. So if you would like to define the term irreducibly complex sound, that would be an irreducibly complex sound is a chord fragment with multiple implications.
Okay.
Now that's not a banality, because we have a very important distinction to other complex sounds, especially these complex sounds which are complex by chord extensions. So this, if you would try to do a traditional chord out of this sound, you would destroy actually its identity. That's my hypothesis. If you would do the same thing, reducing complexity and going to a traditional formula with, let's say, a D, so a dominant 7 with B9 and B13. Go to a dominant 7 without destroying the identity of the chord. Maybe you lose a little bit of the flavor, but it's the same chord essentially. You can't do that with these irreducibly complex sounds.
Yes, okay.
And
so basically it's also kind of about having chords that are not derived from triads, at least not derived from one specific triad.
That's the point, yeah. It may be may derive from triads. In the Wolf case, it is clearly so. And Bernard Herrmann actually comes from that tradition also as a film composer. So I would in both cases suggest that triads are the source of which you would derive these chords, but it is possible actually to also go beyond that, right? Now, what is important, I think, is also to say the complexity here in these chords is created by scarcity of information, right? Not by too much or very much information, as in chord extensions. So in German we would call that probably Komplexität durch Unterinformation, which is a little bit more poignant maybe. And you see that in Hugo Wolf's example quite neatly. I'm gonna do 2 false normalizations, yeah, in order to prove that you actually shouldn't or cannot decide for one chord in these fragmented triads here. Now let's suppose that we have FA is actually a D minor triad, okay? And let's also suppose that AB in bar 2 is actually a E major sus4 chord. And let us suppose that DF will be a D minor chord in second inversion. And in the end we would have an E major chord. So this would sound like that. Not bad, right? But the whole magic is gone here. Now maybe I did a bad job in normalizing it. Maybe another possibility, if we would say FA is an F major chord, AB in the second bar would be a D minor 6/5, or if you want to be half diminished in first inversion, then you get in bar 3.
Okay, yeah.
So this would be half diminished again in the last inversion, and then you would get an E major 7. So this would sound like this. Yeah, and also in this instance the whole magic is actually gone, right? The mystery of what's this third about or what's this second about, this is gone and reduced to one standard interpretation, which is way less complex and characteristic than the original one. Now, I see the same thing happening in Bernard Herrmann's Scene d'amour leitmotif harmonic pendulum. I'm gonna propose 3 solutions for this crazy B, C, E, B chord, okay? I'm gonna argue first for this chord being an E minor chord, and then I'm gonna argue for A minor, and then I'm gonna argue for C major.
Okay.
So the first one would be a traditional viewpoint. You would actually say the melody itself very diatonic, right?
Yeah.
So a very normal, very plausible harmonization would be a plagal cadence. So the melody really suggests E minor as a part of a plagal cadence. Now, the melody itself with the E minor triad in the beginning as the falling fifth in the end of the phrase, right? And then the repetition. So there's just a very strong suggestion looking at the melody that it should be actually sort of an E minor chord, maybe with a minor 6 with C. Now, of course, we don't have A minor, we have A flat major, right? Still, this works. Like, you could say it's this traditional formula just altered a little bit. And also you could argue from neo-Riemannian theory, right? You would say A flat major, you could do a Leitung-Wechselklang to C minor, and then you would do a P transformation, so a parallel, and then again the Leitung-Wechselklang from C major would be E minor.
Yes. Well, you can simply say it's a hexatonic pole, right?
It's it's the hexatonic pole.
Yeah, so it's H transformation.
True.
I will explain what this means in videos someday, but yes.
This would be very nice. Yeah, true. It's a hexatonic pole relation, and you might just say, from a traditional viewpoint, this is very a very good suggestion. So what's the problem with that theory? Well, the chord itself lacks the third of E minor, and the root also is weirdly placed in the middle. So really not the position where you would like to put a root note if you want to be clear about a chord. And the other thing, a little bit more subtle, the melody has always, on the downbeat, a dissonance. Now the very first bar doesn't really count because it's an introductory bar. Dissonance. And again dissonance. And then we would say actually the B natural is the dissonant note and not the C. Therefore the C should be the root. This would be again, then the C major solution. So these are the problems with that viewpoint. If we would go to the second viewpoint, we would talk about comparing actually the chords within the context. Now, we actually don't know the context now, so I might just want to show you at least this first 10 bars, because otherwise we wouldn't get really the point of comparing, because we don't have anything to compare. So let's just hear the whole thing up to bar 9, okay?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so on. And you really have very often this sixth chord, for example here. In this case I would say it's an A flat minor chord with a 9/8 suspension and an added 2. And you will have the same thing here on F minor. Again a sixth chord added to 9/8 suspension, and then you will have even this chord, which is actually this chord, but now with a resolve of the suspension. So we would say by comparison, oh, it's clearly A minor, because all the other chords are meant to be sixth chords with some sort of adding the 2 and doing a 9/8 suspension. Now this is also very convincing, I think. Mm-hmm. We would also have a sort of a neo-Riemannian transformation, right? We would say again from A flat to C minor would be a L transformation. Then we would have a P, and then we have an R transformation for relative.
So this entire set of transformations also has a name.
That's a slide, right?
Yeah, it's a slide. Yeah.
Ah, okay. So sort of sliding the fifth.
Yeah, exactly.
Up. Yeah. Very nice, very plausible. And actually a plus point for this interpretation is also later in the climax of the piece in bar 60, I'm gonna play that, it will be actually used as an A minor chord, but we will see that in the end. Now the last one would be the harmonic view. We would go from the chord itself and we would say, well, this is clearly C major. Right? No big mystery here, because we are just lacking the fifth G. So why not C major, right? And this would sound like this. This one is also very neat. We have a traditional formula again, which we lacked in the second interpretation, which is a bit weirdly ahistorical, the slide moment. We can say this is actually, if we would think of A flat major being just the relative of F minor, and we would get a very normal plagal cadence again, but then F
Very
minor.
normal, I don't know, but
Well, but clearly within 18th century, very normal kind of music,
I mean,
right?
the F minor, yes, but the A flat major
Yeah,
is
true.
already.
That's true. This is, but you can at least say, well, we have a tradition behind that, right? And if you would combine all three,
Yeah.
very traditional, powerful formula, a little bit of this plague feeling, I think, is clearly there. The harmonic view would actually say C major. The problem here is, well, actually we start in E minor. And this chord might be just in the context of E minor, because we heard the E minor triad in the beginning. It just doesn't really sound C major like. And also the doubled 7 attacks the root note. So what I just want to show you, as I wanted to show you with the Wolf example, is you have implications which are all very fine, all very solid. You can see logical explanations, and the point is they are all just one perspective of that very complex chord. And so you can't actually reduce it to one of these solutions. You have to actually acknowledge that the mystical effect of this chord and of this pendulum is due to this irreducibly complex sound. And of course, we talked about this extremely cool Lydian sound.
Yeah.
So it's really loaded with implications and possibilities, which makes it just, for me, one of the most interesting pendulums I ever heard, actually. So I'm really blown away still by that. And I played it like the last 2 days. I just played it up and down. We are now in the end of the first video. To get back to also your videos about tonal ambiguity, this actually neatly also fits to Richard Wagner and other composers of harmonic or maybe even late romantic style. The ambiguity lies in the tendency of the chords, with Wagner, for example, or also with Chopin, but not so much in the chords itself being mysterious in the way what they are actually are, what identity they are.
Yeah.
And this might be also a neat distinction from like romantic style to late romanticism, or the boundaries of tonal music, where you would play more and more with chords which are in themselves irreducibly complex and which would dissolve in a world of so many implications and activating your tonal fantasies, so to speak, right?
Yes. I mean, in this music, because this music that you just showed, the Hollywood music, 20th century one, is in many regards a reception of late romantic music, and because of that it plays on some associations and reflexes that the listeners would have in their mind, and just giving a fraction of a sign will already trigger that sign, right? So it's a little bit the same idea in jazz music to say that the third and the seventh are enough to imply a chord. Here certain dissonances, like this little friction of B and C, are already enough to make you have associations with tonal gestures that are not actually there. So it's a different kind of ambiguity, as you said. You only get a tiny sign, and your brain will reconstruct the rest from it. A little bit like a dream, because if you really think about it, the images that you get in a dream are always, in a way, incomplete. And I think it's the same with this kind of music.
It's a really Hollywood-esque thing to do, I think. Also, Yeah, I think it's always important to mention these are not tiny differences, but it's a bit hard to notice these differences in the harmonic language. It's always harder to say, oh, what's the differing quality between late Romanticism and 1850, than to say what's the difference between Romantic music and classical music, which is a bit easier, I think. Now I should thank somebody who did a very good job in depicting the score actually from Vertigo. So this is Anthony O'Toole. He has a YouTube channel as well, much bigger than ours, but that might change. I don't know over time. So we will racing towards bigger numbers, hopefully.
And unprecedented heights. Yeah.
Yeah. So Anthony O'Toole. I would thank him because he actually did the very hard and artist job of hearing what's in the score and writing it, and also then doing a YouTube video where you can neatly see the score. It's almost perfect, very little mistakes, and actually I bought a score which I used and there were many mistakes, and so Anthony O'Toole helped me a great deal.
Okay.
So you should check also his video to the Vertigo Love theme. He also has a very, very detailed harmonic analysis, and it goes much beyond what we are doing. We are just doing the first 24 bars. He's actually talking about the whole 6 minutes, which it's tremendous work, really.
Yeah. So we'll put a link in the description, right, for this video.
Definitely for our 100 subscribers to go support.
111 as we are speaking.
Okay, so we will say goodbye.
Yeah, thanks for watching and goodbye.